I have talked about anime games since the start of this channel. One of my first videos in this channel outside of Streets of Rage games was discussing anime fighting games, mainly the Naruto Clash of Ninja series. When I made my Naruto underrated fighting game showcase 2 years ago, it was to showcase not all anime games are bad. The Naruto Clash of Ninja series is one of the most underappreciated anime fighting games, and it was even contested in fighting game tournaments such as Combo Breaker. When the topic of anime games is being brought up, all I see on the internet is nothing but anime games are bad. Every single time when I ask why anime games are bad, the answer are either they are nothing but arena fighters or they are not that popular. Anime games are not just arena fighters. They are in fact very diverse. Now when I say anime games, I meant games based on a popular anime series. Outside of fighting games, you got beat 'em up games, party games, RPG, racing games, the list goes on honestly. In regards to them being not as popular as other well-known games, well, I agree on that. But just because they are not popular among the gaming community doesn't make them bad. Moving on to the topic at hand, currently this channel is celebrating its 2nd anniversary. As of today, we have reached 500 subscribers. Although it's a very slow growth for this channel, but I am still grateful for all of you guys here to enable this to happen. In celebration of this channel's 2nd anniversary, I want to discuss possible ideas for an anime game. Whenever I watch an anime, especially the ones that have a large fan base, I always imagine what kind of video game adaptation could be made for this anime. Most popular anime series like Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Dragon Ball Z, and others already have video game adaptations. More certainly, they all have mobile gacha games. Although most of popular anime series got a lot of video game adaptations, some of them only got a few video game adaptations. Anime series like Yu Yu Hakusho and Inuyasha didn't get a lot of video games. Well, Yu Yu Hakusho did get a lot of video games, but that's another different topic. Inuyasha on the other hand, yeah, it didn't get a lot of video games adaptation. Although I understand that these anime are not as big as your Naruto and One Piece, but it is still a shame nonetheless. In this video, I will be discussing my 5 possible ideas for an anime game that are not mobile gacha games, by the way. We will be discussing ideas of games that are more focused on single-player experience or competitive and not free-to-play live services. For this list, I'm going to put 1 anime and 1 genre per entry. So, you are not going to see 2 of the same anime in this list. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Profar, and here are the top 5 possible ideas for an anime game. I mentioned Yu Yu Hakusho in the introduction of this video, so it only makes sense if it makes the list. Yu Yu Hakusho is one of my favorite anime series of all time, and is probably my favorite shonen anime. I mean, Yu Yu Hakusho is my number 2 of my top 10 favorite anime ever. You might be surprised on how many games Yu Yu Hakusho has, dating back all the way during the 4th generation console era. There are a lot of games for this anime, especially fighting games. When I say a lot of Yu Yu Hakusho fighters, I mean a lot of them. How many, you ask?
1 billion, gajillion, fifillion, million.
Personally, Yu Yu Hakusho is the perfect anime show to create a great fighting game. Unfortunately though, with all the billion, gajillion, favillion Yu Yu Hakusho fighting games, none of them got it right. The closest you can get to an actual decent fighting game for the series is Yu Yu Hakusho Forever on the PS2. With the ever popularity of competitive fighting games, I believe right now is the perfect time to reintroduce Yu Yu Hakusho as a fighting game. Outside of the arena fighters that anime games are most known with, there has been a lot of good anime fighting games. We have games such as Dragon Ball FighterZ, Hokuto no Broken, and the resurgence of the Naruto Clash of Ninja series. Anime games can be great competitive fighting games if they are done right by the correct developers. There is no reason not to have a great Yu Yu Hakusho fighting game. The anime itself is just pure shonen in the best form. You watch Yu Yu Hakusho and tell me you don't see a great fighting game potential out there. Now the question is, would Yu Yu Hakusho be a better 2D fighting game or a 3D fighting game? Personally, I am leaning towards Yu Yu Hakusho being a 2D fighting game. My idea of a Yu Yu Hakusho fighting game is something similar to that of Capcom's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Unlike other Capcom fighting games like Marvel vs. Capcom, the JoJo fighting game is relatively grounded, similar to that of Darkstalkers. That's how I see Yu Yu Hakusho as a fighting game, a relatively grounded 2D fighters. Yu Yu Hakusho is an instant classic of a shonen anime. I believe if there is a plan to reintroduce the show to a younger audience of this generation, while respecting the original source material, a good 2D fighting game could be the answer. No! You all know how I love my arcade beat-em-up games, right? Last year's Game of the Year for me was Streets of Rage 4, and this year's Game of the Year is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, so of course a beat-em-up game is going to be on the list. Now, there was a game I remember playing in the arcades back in the day. It was a beat-em-up game based on a popular Chinese novel, Journey to the West. The game is called Oriental Legend. It's basically your typical arcade 4-player beat-em-up game. Revisiting this game made me realize how interesting it would be if there is an arcade 4-player beat-em-up game with the Saiyuki anime. The Saiyuki anime is a very loose retelling of the Journey to the West novel. When I say very loose, I mean very, very loose. You have the main 4 characters in their best shonen pretty boy forms. The monk, Genjo Sanzo, is a cigarette-smoking gunslinger. The monkey, Son Goku, is, well, a monkey-like boy. The pig, Chohakai, is an absolute anime bishonen, and the disciple, Sha Gojo, is the rowdy tough guy of the group. It's ridiculous, but at the same time, it's awesome. Saiyuki was a very popular anime back in the 2000s. The anime had a new season back in 2017 called Saiyuki Reload Blast. A new season of Saiyuki also came out this year called Saiyuki Reload Zeroin. With the return of the Saiyuki anime, would it be not the best time to have a new game based of it? As far as I'm concerned, there are only 2 Saiyuki games that I'm aware of. Both games are on the PS2. Saiyuki Reload, which is an RPG, and Saiyuki Reload Gunlock, which is a 3D fighting game. With 4 characters, this anime can easily be adapted as a 4-player arcade beat-em-up game. With the resurgence of arcade beat-em-up games as of late, a beat-em-up game adapted from a popular anime series would be a great idea. If a publisher, let's say .emu, would want to have a new arcade beat-em-up game like a Streets of Rage 4, creating such game with a Saiyuki anime can be a really interesting approach. Inuyasha is one of my favorites, if not my favorite anime ever. You see this top 10 list I made? I would put Inuyasha in my number 1. To me, Inuyasha has it all. Good story, good characters, good setting, albeit somewhat complicated romance, but nonetheless, it's a complete package. The anime can appeal to both male and female audience. Although it's not as big as your Dragon Ball Z or Naruto, but Inuyasha still has a big following among the anime community. It's a bit of a shame that Inuyasha never got a video game adaptation that reaches its full potential. The closest one to me would be Inuyasha: A Feudal Fairy Tale for the PS1. Even that game has a lot to be desired. If it was up to me to create an Inuyasha game, I would definitely go for a Musou game. Inuyasha has all the makings of a great Musou game. It has the feudal Japan settings, it has characters wielding weapons in a fight, it has many great characters to play as. It is the perfect template for a solid Musou game. I am aware that I rant and criticize often on how Koei Tecmo and Omega Force handle their main Warriors games. My opinion has not changed until today. However, when it comes to handling other IPs, 9 times out of 10, Koei Tecmo and Omega Force would give their all to create a solid Musou game. Dynasty Warriors Gundam and One Piece Pirate Warriors are examples to name a few. I believe Koei Tecmo can really do wonders with an Inuyasha Musou game. I can actually see certain mechanics being applied in an Inuyasha Musou game. Since characters wield weapons, you can apply the weapon system that we have in Dynasty and Samurai Warriors. I'm not talking about characters wielding other characters' weapons, of course. I'm talking about unlocking new weapons and weapon crafting. I would love to see a different version of Inuyasha's Tesaiga, Kagome's bow, Miroku's monk staff, and Sango's Hiraikotsu. An Inuyasha Musou game would also be a good representation of its story in video game form. Koei Tecmo did a good job, in my opinion, representing the One Piece story in their One Piece Pirate Warriors games. I do believe that they can do it as well for an Inuyasha Musou game. You can also have Yashahime as a DLC expansion for that game. I can actually see that as a thing if once again Koei Tecmo would explore the idea of an Inuyasha Musou game. With that being said, an Inuyasha Musou game is something I have been advocating for quite a long time. Though harsh I may be when it comes to criticizing Koei Tecmo and Omega Force, I still believe the potential that they can do with an IP like Inuyasha. Now, this is an anime I was aware back in the day, but I didn't get to really deep into it until around 2 years ago. I started to get into City Hunter ever since I watched the latest movie, City Hunter Shinjuku Private Eyes, which came out in 2019. The plot of the movie is really simple, but it's enough to represent what City Hunter is as an anime. I've been watching a lot of City Hunter lately. I just finished the first season, and now I'm in a marathon of City Hunter 2. Unlike other shonen anime where you have one huge overarching storyline and every arc is connected with each other, City Hunter is more of an episodic series. Every episode or two is its own arc, and they don't necessarily connect to one another to form an overarching story. You can basically pick any episode and follow the story there without having to know what comes before it. City Hunter also has an amazing main character, Saiba Ryo. Ryo is the true definition of a manly man. He is a sweeper with a 100% accuracy marksmanship. Not to mention, Ryo is incredibly cultured. Seriously, I even named my Discord server after City Hunter, Profar Mokoi Hunter X. With an action-heavy series like City Hunter, I'm surprised that there are only 2 games exist for this anime. The first game was City Hunter for the TurboGrafx 16, a 2D shooter game developed by Sunsoft. The second game is not really a City Hunter game, but Ryo acts as a playable character in Jump Force. You all know how well Jump Force was received, right? If I have to pick a genre for a City Hunter game, I would definitely pick a Yakuza-style open world game. Considering how Yakuza games work with the open world, storytelling, character interactions, combat, missions, side missions, and mini-games, City Hunter would work perfectly with this kind of game. The entire story of City Hunter is Ryo accepting higher jobs as a private investigator or a sweeper. Most of his job involves fighting crime in Shinjuku. That's another important thing. City Hunter takes place in Shinjuku, the same location where Yakuza takes place. You got the formula and the setting itself. The game writes for itself. City Hunter and a Yakuza game is indeed a match made in heaven. Sega and Ryoga Gotoku Studio, I believe, can do a really good job with a City Hunter Yakuza game. This won't be the first time that they adapt an 80s anime into a Yakuza game. They've done that before with Fist of the North Star, Lost Paradise, and that game was done really well. Speaking of North Star, both Kenshiro and Saiba Ryo were voiced by Kamiya Akira. Personally, this is even more reason to make a City Hunter Yakuza game. Come on Sega, what are you waiting for? Oh, and you better make sure those sweet 80s music is in the game as well. I always liked the idea of big crossover games such as Marvel vs. Capcom, Super Smash Bros., Warriors Orochi, and Kingdom Hearts to name a few. Shonen Jump is no stranger to crossover games as well. Before Jump Force, there were Jump Superstars, Jump Ultimate Stars, and J-Stars Victory Versus. Most of them, if not all of them, are fighting games. Jump Force was a game to celebrate Shonen Jump's big 50th anniversary. It had a lot of hype when it was announced back in E3 2018. However, when it comes to the actual game, they blew it. Not only it was just another generic arena fighters, but the character models look awful. Not only did the realistic graphics look so out of place with the anime characters only have one facial expression. Look at this. Luffy is always angry even when he's smiling. Now, if Shonen Jump wanted to have a solid crossover game as a big celebration, I will not go for a fighting game. As I previously mentioned, most of the Shonen Jump games are already fighting games. If it was up to me, I'd have an action RPG. Even more specific, a Shonen Jump Kingdom Hearts-like RPG. In Kingdom Hearts, you play as an original character, Sora. Sora would travel between worlds, mostly Disney worlds, where he intertwines himself with the story of a specific Disney movie. A plot like that can honestly work for a publisher like Shonen Jump. Have an original hero and an original villain. In order for the hero to stop the villain, the hero must travel through different Shonen Jump worlds as he intertwines with the story of that world. Imagine if the hero jumps to a Naruto world, then he must work together with Naruto to fight Pain, for example. How about jumping to the world of Dragon Ball Z? Then the hero must help Goku in defeating Frieza. The possibility is endless with this concept. With a Kingdom Hearts style RPG, you can build a story-driven game. There are not a lot of story-driven anime games, let alone a crossover story-driven anime game. I strongly believe this is something that can be considered as a possible anime game. Seriously. Imagine the idea for a studio like Square Enix creating an RPG with Shonen Jump IPs. Considering how really well they did with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, imagine that kind of gameplay, but with characters like Goku, Luffy, Naruto, or Ichigo. That is quality game right there. In conclusion, a Shonen Jump story-driven RPG is the ideal anime game for me. The possibility of this kind of game becoming a reality is very thin, unfortunately. But hey, it's good to imagine such an idea regardless, right? So, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, the top 5 possible ideas for an anime game. It has been 2 years since I started the channel. We are now at 500 subscribers. Although the growth of this channel is rather slow, but I am forever grateful to all of you who made this possible. The journey may be slow, but I intend to enjoy it all the way as much as I can. The possibility of an anime game is endless, honestly. I do believe with the rich source material of popular anime series, there are a lot of games left to be desired. There needs to be more creativity involved when it comes to the games adapted from popular anime shows, instead of your typical arena fighters over and over again. So what are your thoughts on anime games? Do you have a possible ideas for an anime game? Let me know in the comment section below. With that being said, this is me, Profar. Thank you so much for the last 2 years. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, join the Profar Mokoe Hunter X Discord server. I'll see you guys in the next video.